Okay guys, I put this up yesterday and I thought you guys could grasp the concept of what is going on here. I want you to look at this law very, very closely. It's the National Firearm Act of 1934. You see that, you can all see that. So I get this thing straight. I want you to look at this. It is actually a part of the Internal Revenue Code. Imposes a tax on importers, manufacturers, dealers, transfers of short-barreled rifles and shotguns, machine guns, and silencers. It requires a registration of such firearms and prohibits their unauthorized importation. You understand what's happening here? Congress only has limited powers. It only has specific powers. No place in that Constitution, anywhere, does it say that Congress can pass firearm laws to take away or restrict your firearms. The Second Amendment says, shall not infringe. Infringe means you can't touch it. You keep your hands off of it or you're going to get hurt. That's what it means. So, since they weren't allowed to pass any firearm law, they put this into the Internal Revenue Code. Do you understand that? They don't have the authority to pass firearms law. They do not have the authority. So they put it into the Internal Revenue Code. You got to remember that was back during the untouchable years, and they couldn't pass any laws to limit those gangsters, and they wanted to take them to jail, so they invented this Firearm Act and stuck it into the Internal Revenue Code, and oh, now we got something to take them to court with. Put them behind jail. They do not have the authority to pass firearms law. Any firearms law that they pass is under the color of law. Everything in those firearm laws conflict with the Constitution, making them null and void, as if they never existed. We're going to go back over here just a second. We have a fella out in Kansas that's doing his best to do the same thing. Now I'll put a link down here. I want you guys to understand what is happening here. You just didn't grasp it, and it's right there in front of you. Congress doesn't have the authority to pass any firearms law. It's not there. It's not in the Constitution. Go look it up. Go look it up. They know this. Now this fellow here, I wanted to zoom this in so you could see it. A federal trial of a Kansas man for manufacturing and selling firearms and silencers without a federal license could very well turn out to be the pivotal case that not only challenges the constitutionality of the National Firearms Act of 1934, but also every federal firearms law ever passed in a battle that will be determined whether it is the state of the federal government that has the constitutional right to pass laws. Neither one do, because if the federal government can't pass it, neither can the states, because they have to follow the Constitution. They signed on for this. This is a contract. Okay? We're going to get down here. Here it says here, the Founding Fathers meant what they said when they wrote the amendments to a federal constitution that was designed to tightly bind and constrict the reach of the federal government. We'll get down here just a second. See, the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights was written by the Founding Fathers, who understood the right to bear arms as a natural human right that the Creator bestowed upon each and every human being. They didn't give the politicians didn't give you these rights. You were born with them. Okay. Now we had a problem here with Franklin Roosevelt. The Second Amendment meant that the federal government in Washington had no power to constrain or regulate arms, and it was an unquestioned reality for the first 143 years of our republic. And then Democrats of the 1930s, under the disreputable and dishonorable Franklin D. Roosevelt, decided the Constitution and the Bill of Rights no longer mattered. FDR and his Congress were bound and determined to enslave the states to the will of his federal government, and the National Firearm Act of 1934 was a direct challenge to the sovereignty of the states to make laws regarding firearms. It was also a thumb in the eye of the founders who had clearly written the Second Amendment to mean what the federal government was constrained from passing gun laws. That's precisely why the founders meant when they wrote that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. States can't pass firearm law either because they are bound by the Constitution. All these states, when they joined the United States of America, when they joined this nation, they took an oath to uphold all the laws that are in the Constitution. And the Constitution is the supreme law of the land, and they can't overstep it. The Second Amendment to the Constitution ratifies and preserves for every citizen the right to keep and bear arms, and that neither Congress nor any other instrument of the federal government can infringe upon those rights. They are constitutionally barred from infringing upon your rights. That 1934 law is under the color of law. They put it in the Internal Revenue Code so that they can put the untouchable people away like Capone and them. You can't pass a firearm law. It's against the law. It's against the Constitution. But they were doing anything that they could to put these gangsters and stuff in jail. Like I said, it has a color of law. Doesn't mean crap. Keep an eye on this kind of stuff. I'll put a link to this thing. Please go read it. Now I've showed you the paperwork on it's actually a part of the Internal Revenue Code. Congress knew they weren't allowed to pass any laws against the firearms themselves. You cannot restrict the firearms. So what they did, they put that into the Internal Revenue Code. It looks like it's a law, but actually it's pure meaningless. Can't pass that kind of law any more than you can pass any kind of ex post facto laws. You look in the Constitution, you can't pass that. But your Congress passed that Domestic Firearm Act back in 96 or 97, and automatically all those people, you see, it should have took effect 30 days or 60 days after they passed the law. But they worded it so they could go all the way back to Adam and Eve. That's against the law. You can't pass a law after an act or a commission of a crime and then lump all the people into it. That is against the Constitution. You see what these people are doing? Thanks for watching.